does a possibly make a probably? We can commit fallacies when we do science. Fallacies are mistakes in our thinking. We call one of these fallacies the possibility fallacy. We made up this name. This is a new name. Breaking news. This is when we confuse a possibility with a probability. And I'm going to explain about how this happens. Here's a possibility fallacy that Calvin is committing.
Life is full of possibilities. For example, right now, instead of waiting for the school bus, I could stick out my thumb, hitch a ride, and spend the rest of my life in the Serengeti migrating with the wildebeests. The Serengeti is in Africa. You couldn't really hitch a ride there. Life is full of precluded possibilities.
Here you have Calvin is confusing what is possible with what is probable. It's possible he could get to Africa by hitching a ride. It's possible, but it's not probable. It's more probable his mom is going to catch him. Okay, to illustrate this, we came up with this story, which is a kind of modification of something that's true.
Yes,
Actually, you will find.
You can get this all on the internet.
Not exactly like this, but sort of like this.
Special report. Was the moon landing a hoax? In 1969, NASA announced that it had put a man on the moon. In the years since, the Apollo moon landings have held a special place in American history, and until recently, nobody has doubted its validity. However, there is a growing wealth of evidence throwing doubt on whether man went to the moon at all. Was it all a hoax? You decide. It started when veteran photograph analyzer Allen began to question whether it was possible to land on the moon. I found we couldn't have done it, he says. The technology just wasn't there in 1969. Computers were merely glorified calculators. Allen says he has found many reasons why we couldn't have landed on the moon. Things like the impenetrable Van Allen belt and meteors make a moon mission impossible. But what about the pictures of astronauts on the moon, you say? Allen and his team studied the Apollo photographs and concluded there are literally tons of problems. Our discovery suggests these pictures were actually taken in a Hollywood studio. For example, look at the picture on the left. Where are the stars? See here, you can't see any stars. On the moon, where there isn't any atmosphere, you should see more stars than if you were on Earth. But you can't see a single star in the photo. See if you can see any stars in the next photographs. That one, there's no stars in this one. And this one, there's no stars. No stars in that one. This isn't the only Apollo anomaly. Look closely at the shadows in this picture here. The shadow of the astronaut on the left is much smaller than the shadow of the astronaut on the right. See, that's shorter and that's longer. This would be impossible on the moon where the sun is the only source of light. Allen says there are two reasonable explanations for this. There were two floodlights lighting up the stage where the photos were taken, or two, there is a single floodlight very close to the fake astronauts somewhere over there. Now look at this one, see? This shadow here is much longer than that one. That doesn't seem to make sense. And here's another one. Look at the angle of the shadows in this photograph. This would seem to indicate that the light source is just to the left of the picture. Here we have, here you can see this line here, and we have the shadows pointing in that direction. All that shadow is pointing in that direction. It would mean that it would be like a light over here. Allen finds this photo the most convincing. Look carefully at the lower left corner right here. Did you see the C someone drew on the rock? This probably meant the rock went in a certain place on the stage. They just forgot to turn it upside down. Another question Allen asks is, how is it possible they took so many pictures? The average temperature on the moon during the day ranges from 260 to 280. How did the film and the camera survive? At that temperature, photographic film would melt. Why did NASA fake the moon landings, Allen says? Allen says the answer is simple. We were in the Cold War with Russia, and we wanted to show the world that we were better no matter what the costs. The end.
Okay, did this news report convince you? We were trying to convince you. very hard. Was this good science? The things that were described in this report, was it good science?
It appeared to be good science.
It appeared to be good, at least science. It was some science. This report showed how it's possible the moon landings were a hoax. And the reasons it gave were maybe you couldn't see the stars because they were all faked stars, or they forgot to put them in. Maybe there was a C on the rock because it was a stage prop. That's why. Maybe the film would have melted if it was really taken to the moon. And they hadn't thought of that. So it's possible we didn't land on the moon, right? Is it possible we didn't land on the moon? It's possible. It's possible they faked it all. But remember, possibly doesn't make probably. There's lots and lots of evidence that we did land on the moon. You have to think of it like a balance scale. You have evidence on one side and you have evidence on the other side. Which side is heavier? Okay? Evidence we did land on the moon include things like all the photos and videos. Those are actually evidence that we did land on the moon. There may be some problems with some of them, but generally speaking, they're all very strong evidence in favor that we did. Moon rocks. Scientists have moon rocks today that they can study physically, that aren't like anything else on Earth. Thousands of scientists who worked on the project say it wasn't a fake. And you, of course, have the astronauts who were eyewitnesses.